Welcome back to another episode of Right Here in Mass. Joining me today is Ned Caron, who leads the marketing team at Great Decision Intelligence as Senior Vice President of Marketing. He brings a data-driven approach to all aspects of marketing, overseeing strategies for sales growth, customer retention, and lead generation. He's passionate about empowering higher education institutions with data-driven solutions and a strong advocate for Gray's leading-edge technology, which helps colleges and universities navigate the complexities of the higher education landscape through efficient and smart decision-making. With over 7 years of experience in marketing and sales, Ned is a charismatic leader known for building strong relationships and achieving results. Ned, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. In 7 years, wow. I guess I'm younger than I thought.
Well, let's get started with that. Let's chat about what you've done in your career, what Great Decision Intelligence is, and your role there, if you want to dive right in and give us an overview.
Sure. So Great Decision Intelligence is a software, data, AI, and solutions platform that allows higher education institutions to make better program decisions. Basically, what we do is we take all the external data about an academic program, whether it be sports management, engineering, or whatever, and we help colleges understand what the demand is for that program. What is how many students actually want to take that program? What does your competition look like in market and out of market? And also, what is the labor situation for that program for kids that are graduating? We then pair that by taking all schools' internal data, the economics, the academics, and all that of that program, mash them together, and then you can get a very clear picture. I should start this program that I'm not offering because students want to take it. The competition's open. There are a lot of jobs, and it'll financially benefit my institution, or it also fits the mission of my institution. And so we help them launch new programs, look at their academic program portfolio, and grow their current programs that they're not growing as much as they could, or basically help them do it themselves. And then possibly also look at ways to either sunset or teach out programs or change up programs that aren't as fit. One of the biggest things we do, though, is we make sure people aren't just cutting programs with a hatchet, right? You got to go in with a fine-tooth comb. A lot of schools today are just cutting programs willy-nilly for no reason. Our software allows them the ability to make very tiny cuts, very tiny decision changes that might be able to save a program and also make sure they can meet their students' needs.
Yeah. And I like that it's that twofold approach that you mentioned of being able to grow or consider new programs that might be a good fit for where people are going into careers or might be aligned with the college or university's mission. And on the opposite end, making those decisions where it doesn't necessarily make sense to continue using resources on a program that just isn't aligned with the university or the students anymore.
Yeah, it's really, you got to meet people where they're at these days, and higher education's kind of in a brand new phase where they need to be a little bit more nimble.
Mm,
They're not going to be a for-profit business, that we understand, but they also have to make sure they're meeting the students where they are, as well as meeting the employer's needs where they're as well, and being financially secure and making sure they are around for as long as possible. Right. There are
absolutely.
a lot of competition out there in a lot of different ways. Plus, there's a ton of really negative headwinds that just absolutely are not true in higher education. One of the things everybody's like, oh, liberal arts is a terrible degree. Liberal arts is one of the best degrees you can graduate with, and almost 85% of the people that graduate with it make make sorry, what was the quote I was looking for? Make about $78,000 a year. They are one of the
Wow.
highest paid professions. They go into many, many more fields. A lot of people will look at a history major like, oh, that person becomes a history teacher. No, he doesn't. That person becomes a doctor, a lawyer, and all these other things. And our software also helps combat some of the misinformation out there when it comes to the attack on higher education.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point too, where it's like, I think a lot of people might have almost like a closed-minded mindset of like opportunities that people can consider within colleges or universities and what they can do with their major or whatever they're pursuing within that program and have so many great career choices out of it. And I especially love that you look at the labor piece of seeing what's like a high demand for potential careers or what's kind of like lacking people in that careers if there's opportunities for getting in. So it's nice that you kind of have like, of course, the university focus, but then also the postgraduate focus of where people can go after that.
Well, there's just so much information out there. Like if you look at, if I were to tell you today that philosophy and logic majors are some of the most in-demand people right now, and it's for AI jobs, you'd probably be like, what the heck are you talking about? But given
Mhm.
the way prompt engineering and the way you have to think logically about decision trees, those people are sought after all the time to help develop some of the new LLMs that are out there and stuff like that. So it's not just the program you go into, it's the skills that you get in those programs and how they're transferable. I mean, I was a sports management major at UMass way back in the day, and now I'm in VP of marketing for a data analytics company. So taking advantage of the situations you get is also helpful, but you can learn many different skills across many different areas in higher education.
Absolutely. And could you talk a little bit more about how Gray Decision Intelligence was started? Was there a need that was kind of identified, and then you're like, hey, there actually might be a need for a company here with the leadership team building it out?
So this came about during the Great Recession in 2008 when my CEO, Robert Gray Atkins, was looking to kind of start a recession-proof business. And one of the things you discover during a recession is higher education grows. People are out of work, tend to go back, get new skills, make better choices, or sometimes just absolutely find the opportunity to switch a career. And so Bob partnered with two other partners and started a consulting firm called Gray Associates. And what happened over the course of time is they would go in and they would make these models for these schools, basically doing all the analytics on the backside, a lot of the outside calculations and stuff like that. And they were helping schools make these decisions. I think we started in 2008, and then slowly, right around 2012, Bob hired a couple of people to even build more models. And what we discovered is, why are we building models just for us when these models could actually be used by the colleges and universities? And that's when we started selling our software. Because the one thing we realized, well, Bob realized as a consultant kind of thing at the time, we don't know everything about the university. Just because we have data doesn't mean somebody should be data driven, especially in higher education. Higher education, you need to be data informed, where you should have taken into consideration, but there's a lot of other factors that go into it. So I think it's really important that we kind of provided the software and some of the guidance, because for the first time ever, the schools were looking at academic programs in a brand new way versus traditionally the way you can see it was worked. People look at, are there jobs for graduates? Okay, we should run those programs, which is, it's a good way to think if you're thinking extremely basically. What we did and what Bob and his team at first expanded on is look at what students want to take. Because there could be a million job postings out there, but sometimes students understand that career path is already dead. And the reason there's a million job postings out there is because, one, nobody wants to do the job, or two, that kind of career is slowly, or there might be something unique about that job that's not a good fit. So you really have to also look at the competition and the student demand side. So they really took what students were searching for and helped apply that to school. So the first time you could grow a program that could do both the student side as well as the labor side. That started about 2012, 2013. They really took off and started selling some software. And from there, it was kind of off to the races. In 2015, they hired their first salesperson, Lisa, and they really started selling the software into the schools. The big change, I would say, probably happened around 2019, where they hired me. And when Bob hired me, he had one directive, is that is come in and help me turn our company into a software company. They were extremely consulting face, we versus you can do this yourself kind of
Yeah.
messaging. I was the only one that came from a software background. I had recently just launched a Dutch company in Boston. We had our first Boston station called Every Angle, and they ended up being sold. And so I had a lot of experience with them, as well as working with Microsoft on what was a disaster of a product launch called Windows 8 way back in the day. Xbox One was a lot more fun launching that, and that was very successful. But my marketing team with Windows 8 went from marketing team to a sales training team very quickly due to the fact that everybody didn't know where the heck their start button went. And so that was an absolute disaster, but you live and learn. So yeah, Bob hired me in 2019, and we were off to the races in terms of completely revamping the marketing side of things and going from I would say a very sales concentrated marketing team to an inbound lead generation team. We then
Mhm.
immediately hired a customer success manager to make sure our customers were understanding how to use our software correctly and how to change their thinking. We expanded the sales team to 3 people, and we basically just started really expanding our reach by launching a webinar, monthly webinar, even bigger than it had been before, launching a masterclass, which is now also offered at Bay State University, No, sorry,
Yeah.
not Bay State. Wrong university. So I'll have to get that back to you. I can't remember off the top of my head. But
Yeah.
yes, you can actually take a four credit class to understand how you should evaluate programs and stuff like that. And since then, I was employee 9. We are now up to employee 50, 44, actually. Approaching on 50 probably by the end of this year. We were $2 million in sales. We're almost up over $9 to $11 million in sales expected this year. We had about 30 companies, schools when I started, and we're over 150, and we keep on expanding. Um, we have to be up and very much on point when it comes to artificial intelligence,
Mm.
and especially for marketing, where you see a lot of generative AI stuff out there, which is really easy to use, and it's going to move the needle, but it's not a game changer. And what we really hope to do here at Great AI is more of the analytical AI, where you can take a huge data set, throw it into Snowflake, and then have your AI, or the ones that we are building, you can custom ask it questions about the data versus like trying to make pictures or write blogs and stuff like that, which our team's gotten pretty good at. So that's where we're headed towards next. And the future is very bright, I think.
Yeah. And it's exciting to hear about in the only probably about, I guess, 16 years since starting the company originally when it was the consulting portion of it, that so much has happened since then. And I can also imagine that 2020 probably played a pivotal moment with yourself and the work that you're doing with universities, with so many programs shifting to remote. It probably provided new opportunities to bring in more students and have new offers, since everything didn't necessarily need to be tied to the campus itself, and being able to have that remote learning opportunity.
There was a 2020 was interesting because I mean everybody had no idea what the heck's going to happen, right? COVID
Mhm.
hit, everybody moves remote. We've been remote pretty much. Um, we go in the office every now and then. I need to see people. If I'm not hanging out talking to people, I'm absolutely losing my mind. So it's good to get out. But once COVID hit, nobody knew, but a bunch of good things happened to higher education and as well as us, is where before you had some people playing in the online space very well. Southern New Hampshire University, Grand Canyon University were offering a ton of courses online, and they were doing pretty good. This forced colleges to kind of face that challenge head on. And not only did they have to go online, but they figured out how to do it and how to do it well in some cases, or they figured out what they had to change. And so that was good. Then they could start offering more programs online and providing access and meeting students where they were. The other thing, of course, that happened for higher ed during the pandemic was there was giant checks being written for them by the federal government, which they could then turn around and reinvest in new softwares, new technologies, and other things like that to kind of get their university up to speed. Because higher ed has been always kind of a slow moving industry. And
Mhm.
this kind of, number one, forced them to move and think a little bit quicker, but also gave them some of the funds that they needed to be able to do it.
Yeah.
We're seeing that trend continue, but also pull back, just also because the funding quite from the federal government is not quite there anymore. So they're going to have to back to really becoming innovative and figuring out the best way for them to grow their schools, which also then was where our software ties in. We are the only software that immediately can show you we can grow your revenue by doing this, and we can help you find cost savings at the same time, which traditionally you wouldn't be thinking of at higher ed, but now in the new world, you kind of have to.
Yeah, especially because there's a lot of competition between these schools. I mean, I majored in business when I went to school. And so you have like the Bentley versus the Babson, and it's like having that competition of choosing which one is the best option. And so when universities are able to use AI and technology and software to have those informed decisions and kind of help captivate more students and whatnot, I think it can be really incredibly helpful.
Well, it's interesting here in New England and well, just the Boston region with so many schools that are extremely successful, there's a lot more rejection rates. So their enrollments are
Hmm.
pretty much going to be fine. We have seen some of them use our software to help save costs and maybe combined a couple of programs together or kind of see what's hot, see what's coming down the pipeline right now that should be involved in. But when you're talking about Babson, Bentley, BUBC, their enrollment's pretty good. They have such a good brand name. There's enough students in this area to go around. It's some of the smaller schools. Curry College, which I got my MBA at, just announced
Hmm.
a guaranteed job program by their president that's coming out. So that's really interesting. And that's some of these schools are starting to use that to find a way to kind of separate themselves as well.
Yeah. Do you have any case studies that you could share of like successes that any of your colleges or universities have had that you could talk about?
Sure. We worked with Youngstown that increased their international enrollment, which is a huge area of opportunity for a lot of schools, especially taking things online. Almost 35%, generating them over $2 million. We've helped Elizabethtown College find cost savings of up to $500,000, basically helping them meet their budget demands from their board. So those are just two examples of that that we have across the board.
Yeah, and those are great ones too. And you brought it up a great point about AI earlier about having to kind of move quickly and being able to leverage all that it can do for good. And I'm an advocate for AI, but do you ever get instances where there might be institutions that are a little bit hesitant to work with a company that might be using that as part of their offering?
So yes, totally. And they should
Mm.
be scared. AI is scary. And so higher education's had a real problem over the last couple of years with security in general. They did not keep up with the trends in terms of cybersecurity, that they then became very, very easily targets for cyber thieves, data thieves, stuff like that. So they have a skeptical eye of one, letting AI companies use their software to teach that AI, and two, sometimes having outside companies come in and attach directly into their systems. Now for Gray, we kind of take that burden off of them. We currently do not attach their systems. And also, we are vetting a million different AI companies all the time. We will not sign a long-term deal with any AI companies because the technology is changing so fast. But
Mhm.
we have bounced around and we've dabbled in just about everything we can get our hands on. In terms of especially analytical AI, we've used tools such as Astro, ThoughtSpot. We've also, I mean, Gemini's been one we play with, ChatGPT, Perplexity. So we are kind of also trying to establish ourselves as somebody that could help higher ed advise the pluses and minuses when it comes to what AIs they choose, what is secure, what they should or should not do with it in terms of, all right, you should connect it to this company, but not to the next company. This is what you can teach it right now. But if you're not comfortable putting your data on there, wait until maybe it gets better results, things like that, because it's extremely scary. The other problem with that with higher ed is their data is not where it needs to be able to be used by AI. It's not clean, it's not organized in a lot of cases. There's some schools that are way far ahead, they're just absolutely crushing it, don't get me wrong. But to have a data lake built with all the crosswalks in the back end setup is very hard. And that's something we also provide services on, or at least guidance on to do it, because bad data in, worse AI results out. You'll get fake stories, you'll get incorrect information, all that kind of stuff. Especially schools are like businesses were about 10, 15 years ago, where their data is very, very siloed. We can help break down those silos, because if AI is looking at all your data and you're talking in two different languages or data languages, next thing you know, you're going to get even worse. You're going to get two different answers from two different divisions of your school.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up because that was on my mind of something to ask you is if you actually help kind of get those institutions put all their ducks in a row with their data. So that way it's not like a barrier to entry, I guess, with working with you. If they're worried about their data and how it's set up, you can help them with that and then work with them to be able to make these informed decisions for their programs.
Yeah. I mean, when it comes down to it, in the end, we are data experts, I would say. We make really good software. We're playing with AI, but in the end, what we really wanted to do is collect as much outside data that schools could help them make decisions and work with their inside data. So we've seen it all. We've seen really good data sets. We've seen really, really bad data sets. And one thing we do, and sometimes people are like, why does it take you so long to help us set up an internal solution? Is because we do take that meticulous time that it takes to clean your data, build the crosswalks. Some schools are like, I don't want to show you my data because we're just kind of embarrassed. We're like, don't worry, it can't be any worse than what we've seen before. And we get excited about it. And I think it saves schools a ton of time. They don't want to do this themselves. Finds them money. Accounting errors happen all the time. And when your data is messed up, you can really find some true savings just in cleaning up your data itself.
Yeah. And I know that you work a lot within the higher education space, but would you ever consider pairing like vocational schools with employers since that's something that a lot of people are looking into?
We work directly with anything. So higher education,
Nice.
I think the term is wrong now. We work with vocational schools. We have
Yeah.
also talked about possibly talking about private high schools as well. But anything you need to go um, after graduating high school. So we worked with some of the biggest schools that just concentrated in automotive industry, right? The automotive training, stuff like that. We've worked with salon training schools. We've worked with all kinds of these one-off stuff. And they're all wondering where they're losing money for or where they can get more students because they're also now competing with Coursera. They're competing with Udemy and anything else that you can take masterclass. They're these one-off certificate programs. Should they be getting involved in that stuff? So they're also looking at that competition as well. So we're willing to work with anybody that really is trying to build a program portfolio for, I would say, not just higher education, but any time of post-secondary education.
Yes, absolutely. And even though you don't necessarily work with the employers directly, I mean, I imagine that the labor force itself is likely intrigued by something like Gray because of the fact that they're now getting high quality employees out of it and whatnot. So is there ever any instance where you have worked directly on the labor side?
We've talked to some workforce and development agencies.
Mhm.
The they like our labor market data, but they don't really use it the way we have it lined because we are really trying to be the solution for higher education. So we build things that fit higher education's needs. And for labor market, workforce and development suppliers, they need it set up a little bit differently. We might go in there at some point, but currently, given our market share, we really are concentrating just on higher ed. We also have a couple nonprofits. We also give our software away too, but that's also kind of trying to help people get to where they need to be and making good program decisions.
Yeah, definitely. Where would you say Gray is going in the next year or so? Are there any exciting plans that you can talk about or ideas that you're thinking about pursuing?
Oh God, we are going to be integrating AI as much as possible. We just recently had a webinar where we announced the AI reporting tool where literally, if you look at some of our software, there's a ton of information, a ton of numbers on one page. And if you're a dean, you're like, what the heck does this even mean? And so we built a tool, you click one little button and it produces a written report telling you exactly what you're seeing and suggesting kind of where you might be wanting to lean your decision on or what you should be looking at. We're going to roll that out probably, we think, for just about every aspect of our PES market side. So you'll have a labor market data AI reporting tool, you'll have a competition AI reporting tool all built into that. The other thing we want to do is, like I said before, is we were looking to partner with schools about their internal data. So then you can upload all your internal data and you'd be like, all right, what are my best performing programs via margin as well as academics? And then just by entering that question, you get a report coming back that says, okay, here's your margin, but the academics weren't great, but here's what's both, right? So, all right,
Mm,
I know I have no problem with these, or what's my poorest performing? And then trying to also like use AI to leverage some of the hardest questions of higher is why are kids coming back? Or why are kids not coming back that got above a 2.5 GPA? Right? Is it, we've heard crazy stories. Like sometimes schools have like stopped giving parking tickets because they can't get their grades. Like all these kind of things. What is the real factors that keep retention? Because one of the biggest things, especially growing up in Vermont, is when school kids don't come back to school over and over again. It not only hurts the school, it hurts the community. And then they tend to leave those towns and stuff like that. And those towns suffer as well.
That's an interesting point too, is just thinking about retention in terms of what's actually preventing students from coming back or why they might transfer elsewhere. I think that's helpful data to have for schools to consider as well.
That's like the pipe dream of trying to actually be able to figure out because there's so many factors, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
sometimes it's financial. Yes, it's sometimes work. Yes, sometimes it's family, but there's a lot of other little things that go into it. Sometimes for other things, it's childcare, right? You don't have the ability to have childcare on site. So it's nobody's ever been able to get down to like top three primary reasons, right? Maybe it's the professors, maybe it's the grades, but nobody really knows. So that is one. Colleges would be a lot better off financially. Just like I would say any other company, if you can retain your customers, which are the students, you can then easily, much more easily, make your financial needs versus having to constantly go out and find new students. And that's one of the biggest things. Plus, it's really beneficial for the students, right?
Yeah.
College is worth it. A lot of people today still say it's not. But the truth is, if you do graduate the 4-year degree, you're going to make almost $1 million more than anybody else over the lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, what would you say is something that's been a little bit challenging with your industry that you've noticed, or just kind of pain points that you might face along the way?
For me personally, it was coming from Microsoft, every angle, and the outside. I mean, I was a ski bum for a bit. I worked at Decathlon Sports. I don't know if your listeners remember that, but that was MVP Sports was a staple in Mass and then got bought by a French company. And so coming from business and going into higher ed, the terminology has to change.
Mm.
They're not looking to make profits. They're looking to keep their doors open and have their students succeed as much as possible. So refocusing that messaging has been a challenge in general. And then the thing about higher ed is it's just the political capital that people sometimes try to garner by attacking higher ed or uplifting higher ed, and to making somebody getting an education into something that could be good or bad versus somebody just trying to better themselves has been really, really frustrating. And I think it is probably for a lot of people in higher education where it doesn't need to be that way. Um, yes, higher ed is expensive, but yeah, there are ways to pay for it. And yes, there's also benefits to getting to it that are truly beneficial. Doesn't mean you can't just go into some random program that really does not have a career path. But if you give guidance to those students, they should always come out and be on top, no matter what. I mean, there are some limitations to how much schools should cost, don't get me wrong. But the political aspect of my industry at times can be extremely frustrating.
Yeah. And the opposite end, I can imagine it can be like gratifying as well to know that you're making such a big difference in for these universities and the students as well, with being able to have these programs that are highly sought after and being able to help them grow.
Yeah, it's some of our biggest successes. We have a webinar every year called 5 Programs That Should Be on Your Radar. About, I think, 4 years ago, we did it and we suggested you launch a esports program. And it's become the fastest taking off program in the country,
Wow.
including down at Curry College, where they just opened a brand new esports facility as well. So being ahead of the curve and kind of identifying trends that really help schools meet students where they're going to be soon and help them becoming early movers and things, I think has been extremely wonderful. And it's also just when you see somebody have a breakthrough and understand, I can't just look at my programs once every 5 years. I got to manage this program portfolio and then get it and then it works. It's extremely gratifying, especially for some of the schools like my alma maters and stuff.
Yeah. And that's interesting what you mentioned about the esports industry. That's one thing I was thinking about is across the board, if there's been any programs that you've noticed that tend to be really popular. And then on the opposite end, if there's any programs that kind of tend to be falling off based on the data that you have.
We do a webinar every month where we do the like fastest growing month over month, year over year kind of things like that. And it can change rapidly, but I mean, I would tell you right now, the AI programs are exploding in general, from applied AI all the way down to just the basic prompt engineering certificate programs are exploding very well. But that's kind of always the interesting thing is also see engineering is changing. Cybersecurity, there's always, it's interesting. Cybersecurity has kind of gone flat in student demand, but the jobs, they can't find enough people for cybersecurity jobs because it literally
Mm.
changes all the time. So that has always been a very popular program. Um, Programs that are slowly, in terms of student demand, they're, I would say music isn't getting searched as much, but that can also change. It was interesting during COVID, the fastest growing program was Bible studies. All of a sudden, all
Wow.
the people were sitting at home really scared, and next thing you know, they had time on their hand and they started going online courses, studying religion and studying Bible study. So it was extremely interesting how fast things change. I don't have any data off the top of my head because it's actually going to get announced tomorrow on our webinar. Well, actually, no, the community college webinar is this afternoon. The 4-year program webinar is there where we'll release our monthly most up-to-date data.
Yeah, very cool. And I'll link to those in the show notes too, so that way our listeners can kind of rewatch from there. But for any college or university that's looking to work with Gray to see if there's any programs that they can kind of dump more resources into or perhaps sunset, what advice would you have for them for just getting started with this?
You got to remember it's a flywheel, and you can start on either side of the flywheel. So there's I have to find cost savings because you need savings to start programs, but new programs generate revenue and you need revenue then to keep the university open. So figure out where you need to cut or where you want to grow. The one thing you can't do is find a bunch of cost savings and sit on it. If you are not investing in growth, you are going to have a death by 1,000 cuts. If you need to, you always need to find ways to increase enrollment if you can, as well as being smart about your savings. So it can't just be one or the other. You need to do both at the same time. And it depends on what your philosophy is and what your school needs right away of how to get in on the ground floor. We always tend to tell everybody, launch new programs. And you can sometimes get programs off the ground 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, maybe a year, depending on the type of program you have. And that will start generating you new revenue very quickly. And with our software, you're able to identify not the best program out there, but the best program for your school and your market. And that way, you're not just launching a good program, you're launching the best program you have. And then the other thing that happens with that, with our AI part of that, is we can tell you how many students you're most likely going to get when it comes to when it's fully grown. So that helps you with your budgetary starts. With that revenue, then you go back through the cycle, like, okay, what can I do next? So remember, it's a flywheel. Don't just cut and not invest. Don't cut money just to not invest in anything. You got to keep investing in new programs. Or also, there's a lot of potential of growing your own programs that you currently have in-house. And one of some of the innovative things people have done, instead of even doing like saying, I'm not going to grow a new program, they take two different programs they're doing okay, mash them up together, like a generative AI and liberal arts major now. And we've seen that pop up where you can have all your professors are already there. You can launch a program without having any more new incoming costs at all. So be creative, make sure you're always looking to find ways to grow, and make sure you're investing any savings you get back into growth.
Yeah, I love that. Great advice. As we
Thanks.
get closer to the end of this episode, one of my favorite questions to ask our guests is what their favorite local businesses are to support. So what would you say your favorite places are to frequent?
So the JP Fuji Group out of Quincy, Jimmy and his entire team. When I was doing my MBA at Curry College, we ended up doing a project with them. And at the time, we were basically advising them on how to franchise part of their Fuji company groups and where to launch restaurants. And my side of the things was what software should they buy basically to help marketing and stuff like that. And they actually also bought another local software in Toast, which was my recommendation at the time and help. And I fell in love with their sushi, even like, so I had never eaten sushi in my life before. And then I'm sitting down one day talking to Jimmy, and he's literally like, look, you can't sit here and order the steak and cheese sushi. You have to actually try real sushi. So I bit the bullet, and I'm now obsessed with Fuji's sushi. So I love Fuji. They're awesome. They're right around the corner from me here in Assembly. They're in Kendall. I think if everybody gets out, they are one of my favorite success stories in Boston from a restaurateur.
Yeah, I love that. Ned, thank you so much for being a guest on today's show. And I really appreciated having the opportunity for you to talk all about Gray and what you're doing within the higher education sector. And now I'd love to give you the opportunity to share with our listeners where they can find yourself and Gray online in case they'd like to connect further and learn more about what you do.
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn at Ned.Caron. It's very easy to find. Or you can also, if anyone wants to talk, you can email me at ned.caron@grady.us. And you can find more information about Gray Decision Intelligence at www.grady.us.
Perfect. And I'll link to those places in the show notes. That way our listeners can connect with you all from there. But thank you so much again for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.